Well, hello there and welcome everyone to the Advisor's Edge podcast. I'm your host, Rob Jacomen, and I am joined here by my co-host, Chad Ramberg, and we're going to introduce our very special guest. Guys, we have an incredible show for you today. We have, once again, I think we hit the jackpot. We have another incredible guest, which we feel extremely blessed and honored to have on the show. But Chad, I'm going to turn it over to you. Welcome to our show today, and how you doing today so far?
Doing good. I'm glad spring is on the way. We are very happy to see some sun in the Northwest. I know they get it in Texas sooner than we do, but yeah, it's really cool to have Chuck here today. I want to say, first thing I want to start off with, the reason we started Advisor's Edge was to be an encouragement and support to advisors. Having done the work for a couple of years myself, I know how hard it is. And the cool thing we got here today with Chuck is somebody who has decades of experience. The first time I met him was at FPA NorCal. He did a little interview with me with Go RIA, which was really cool. We'll be talking a little bit about that. But what I want to invite those that are listening right now is I would love to hear from you what type of guests you would like to hear on the podcast. We talk with a ton of interesting people and we love to bring them on. We think they're interesting, but this podcast isn't for us, it's for you. So let us know. You can shoot me an email at chad.ramberg@boxproinsurance.com. Just send it over. Let me know, okay? But what's really cool about today, it's a little bit of where Chuck came from, where he's going, what's going on in the industry now. So let's dig into it. Chuck, thank you so much for being here.
You bet. Chad and Rob, I appreciate you having me on here. I've been looking forward to this. And I tell you what, after that introduction, the pressure is on. I better deliver some good content for you. So I will try my best.
Oh, it'll be good. However we slice it. We can see you have a whole lot of experience. It's interesting the things you're doing with sovereign wealth and also with Go RIA. But what I'd love to hear from you is a little bit of a background, almost a case study, if you will, of how Chuck got to where we are today.
Yeah, well, I tell you what, it depends on how far back you want to go, right? But I'll give you a quick story because it's interesting. I've told this a fair amount recently. And the best way to position it is to ask if you're familiar with the movie, The Wolf of Wall Street. Mm-hmm. Okay. It's not terribly dissimilar than that story. And here's how it goes. I'll give you the abbreviated version and we'll save the longer one for perhaps over beers if you're out at FPA NorCal again. But here's what happened. When I got out of college, my first job was as a fundraising consultant. So I worked as a fundraising consultant for a company that was a for-profit company that consulted to nonprofits like the Metropolitan Opera, the Wharton School of Business, the Chicago Botanic Garden, and so on and so forth. So basically, they would hire this company, PMI is what it was called, and they would get me, and I would go on and consult and help them raise money, right? Pretty good skill to have, learning how to raise money. And then, and this is where it really gets pretty similar to the Wolf of Wall Street, a buddy of mine that I actually trained in the fundraising world left the fundraising world and went to the infamous 55 Water Street location of Lehman Brothers. And for those of you in the audience that know, so 55 Water Street, infamous is exactly what it was. It was literally the birthplace of cold calling stockbrokers. It's where cold calling literally was born, 55 Water Street, Lehman Brothers. So he did that, and I was like, oh, really, you want to do that? Geez, I'm making $35,000 a year, flying 4 days out of the week. Could he get any better than this? And for those of you in the audience, I'm not sure if this is video or not, I'm a 56-year-old guy. This is back when I was 20, right? So that was back when $35,000, $40,000, you're pretty darn psyched in 1991 to be a recent grad making that kind of money. It was comfortable. Fast forward, this guy's at Lehman Brothers for a year, and it was like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street where he doesn't show me the paycheck, but he told me what his paycheck was. And I was like, holy smoke, that's a lot of money, well into the six figures. And I was like, you know what? I could raise money for the Metropolitan Opera. I bet I could raise money for the stock brokerage firm. Doesn't seem like it's terribly dissimilar, and it's not. So I literally quit my job, started working for some very small, unknown, cold calling stock brokerage firm in New York City, not dissimilar to perhaps what you saw in Wolf of Wall Street. And I just excelled. And what I loved about it, and what I still love to this day about sales, and I know sales sometimes gets this bad reputation. And here's what I say to that. Selling bad things is bad. Selling good things is fine. right? What's wrong with that? You're just communicating a value proposition. And unlike what you saw on the Wolf of Wall Street, I was selling legitimate stocks. I really was, and I was building a real nice book of business. And then once it got big enough, I quit cold calling. Actually, I didn't quit cold calling, but I quit commission business and opened up a branch of Raymond James Financial, the IBD side. Got my CFP and went cold turkey right into fee-based financial planning type business. Built that for about 20 years. That brings us to 2019. 2019, I dropped my 7, dropped my 24, and formed Sovereign Financial as an SEC registered RIA. And I've been doing that for the past 6 years.
Very cool. Now, one thing that I get a kick out of is hearing names, and I can make a lot of assumptions about Sovereign and why that name, but I'd love to hear from you. What was the impetus and why Sovereign?
Well, the real answer is because Independent Financial Group was taken, and that's true.
Okay.
But it's still the same sentiment, right? So I wanted to really highlight the fact that I was independent and I was getting registered, and my lawyer said, oh, Independent Financial Group was taken. And I was like, how about Sovereign? They're like, yeah, that works. So
Nice.
we're Sovereign, which in retrospect, I'm glad, because Independent Financial Group doesn't have the cachet, I don't think, as Sovereign. And we've just come to love the word Sovereign because it really represents everything in our business with our clients, and now everything in our business as we serve the advisors that serve their client. Independence is really baked into our DNA.
Awesome. Hey, Chuck, so I have a question for you regarding how you started. So when you made the pivot and launched your RIA, it's a really scary moment because you're like, hey, I'm putting everything on the line here. What specifically did you do to really grow and scale your RIA? And did you have a game plan and a strategy? Did you have an idea of like who are you going to specialize in? What type of client? What's your avatar? Did you have a game plan like that for launching?
We did. But first I would want to say this. The real pivot was when I went from a stockbroker to a fee-based advisor, right? That was back in 1999. That was a huge pivot because I brought with me somewhere in the neighborhood of no clients with me, 0, right?
Yeah.
Because remember, I was a stock jockey. And if you imagine a book of business of people that were just wanting to buy the next stock, and I said, well, we're going to put together a financial plan and we're going to do asset allocation using low-cost ETFs. They were like, not interested, right? So that was scary. But fortunately, I was young and had only one dependent at that time, which was a street cat that I adopted in New York City. Best cat ever. Like for all those cat haters out there, if you find yourself a cool cat, they're as good as any other dog, right? And I'm a dog person too. I have a lab, but this cat was great. Point is, I had no responsibilities. That was a leap. That was a huge leap because I went from a relatively workable book of business literally to nothing, and I started from scratch in 1999. Now, to your point on this question, the transition, which was in 2019, literally almost exactly 20 years later, from a fee-based RIA in the IBD space to an independent RIA, it's not a leap. It just isn't. Because I was essentially working as an RIA under the Raymond James's umbrella, which was a great one. I had a great time there, and they're a great firm. But that was not a much of a difference at all. So I went out of the office. I left the office on a Friday as an IAR under the Raymond James's RIA, their ADV. And I walked in Monday. The only difference is the sign in front was Sovereign and Raymond James because you had to have both. The only difference was just Sovereign at that point. It really was a very simple transition. Now for me, and for anyone else going from the IBD to the RIA space, that's as easy as it gets because you already own your clients. You're not going to have to worry about protocol, this and that. You already own the data. And it really was a very easy transition. Going from stock jockey to fee-based advisor, that's a leap. And you want to do that when you're young and don't have too many dependents. It's certainly not one that eats much more than a cat does, right? That was an easy switch. But when I went from IBD, acting as an RIA in the IBD, a lot of acronyms here, to RIA, I had a full-on family, a lot of responsibilities. I didn't think twice about it because it was a very easy transition. Now, if you're an advisor in the broker-dealer space at some of these more captive BDs, right, and we know who they are, especially the ones that are out of the protocol, that's a leap. And anyone that tells you otherwise is just not being honest with you. Doable, it happens every day. Those are the more difficult transitions. But if you're going from an IBD like a Ray J or LPL or a Commonwealth, fill in the blank IBDs, you can go RIA very easily. If you're leaving a protocol firm, right, you can transfer into an RIA quite easily. If you're going from a non-protocol firm, that's where it starts getting challenging. Doable, but it's definitely more challenging.
So what did you guys do to grow your RIA?
Yep.
Maybe get more granular on what did you do where did you start? How did you just start doing cold calls? Did you do marketing? What kind of, what was your growth trajectory looking like?
Absolutely. So the way we wanted to grow was not through more clients necessarily, right? So keep in mind, I already had an established book of business. I was about 120 million under management, living a comfortable lifestyle practice. And I wasn't really chomping at the to get many more clients because I was at capacity. So our pathway to growth was to build a firm where we could utilize our systems, which we're really proud of, right? We have a really excellent system methodology, which we actually are in the process of trademarking, called TAMI, Time Horizon Asset Management Integration. And it works beautifully if you're not just a financial planner, but if you're a cash flow-based financial planner, meaning you use an e-money or Right Capital or Orion Planning, all of which are cash flow-based, it does not work for Money Guide Pro. But if you are a cash flow-based financial planner, I happen to use e-money. I'm one of those e-money junkies. We have a TAMP, Turnkey Asset Management Program, that literally dovetails with the cash flow-based financial planning methodology. Why is this? Well, it's because what I like, right? So I created a firm around how I think is the best way to do business, which is to lead with financial planning, utilize cash flow-based financial planning, which I would argue is far superior than goals-based. That could be a debate for another time, but that's my opinion. And any other advisor that agrees would love some. If they don't, they will not. And that's fine too. But to answer your question, Rob, our growth was not so much to bring on more clients for me because I was already at capacity. So my plan for growth was to say, hey, I've got what I really think is a great methodology, hyper efficient and scalable. And if you like this, join Sovereign, pay me a few basis points, and you could do it too. And that was our plan for growth, which was to basically leverage our success operationally with our TAMI system, find advisors that are cash flow-based financial planning advisors that don't want to do the asset management. We're the perfect solution for them. So then what happened was, the first year I set out to build a tech stack to make all this happen and completely flubbed it up. It was a disaster. Absolute dumpster fire. That was year one. Year two, we rebuilt and we love it and it's fantastic. That brings us to year three. So this is about 3 years ago. We said, all right, we're ready. We got to field the dreams here, right? If they build it, they will come. Let's let people know that we're here. That's when we opened up the door to let advisors join. That's when I launched GoRIA.com, which was designed to be educational marketing. And I'm very transparent about this. I don't like people that are, oh, we did it because we want to help humanity, this and that. Yeah, we do. Okay. But we did this because I want to use education marketing to do the following: educate tens of thousands of broker-dealer advisors about the benefits of the RIA space, with the hope and expectation that dozens of those advisors would be like, hey, Sovereign looks pretty good to me. And that's what we've done. So 99.8% of the people we educate through GoRIA.com do something else, and that's cool. But 1/2 of them come to Sovereign, and that's all we need, and we're happy with that. So it's a real win for everyone. So that is our growth strategy, is to create a very niche RIA, right? If you're someone that wants to be a portfolio manager, we're not your place. If you're someone that wants to use Money Guide Pro, we're not your place. But if you're someone that uses e-money or Right Capital or Orion Planning, which are all kissing cousins, they look almost exactly alike, they're cash flow-based financial planning systems, you will love Sovereign, and we would love to talk to you.
It's awesome.
That's cool. Now, one thing you brought up is goals-based versus cash flow-based. Okay. And this is something that I actually don't hear a lot about. So I want to take a little side route here for just a second. What's the 2-paragraph answer difference between goals-based and cash-based? And now you're seeing some of my ignorance in the financial planning space, but I'd love to hear that.
So I can give it to you really short and then I can expand upon that.
Yeah.
Cash flow based is awesome. Goals based sucks. But let me expand on that. Let me expand on that a little bit. So cash flow based, basically you're looking at 3 moving parts. The assumption on what's coming in, what is my income now, what's my income in the future, what's going out, what are my expenses now, what are my expenses in the future, and what's my rate of return. And then once you plug that into an eMoney, Right Capital, Orion Planning, all work almost exactly the same. You plug it into your cash flow-based financial planning system. You put in the assumed inflows, assumed outflows, and the rate of return, and you could see exactly how much money they should save each year while they're accumulating. Because when you're working, hopefully, you're earning more than you spend, so it's going to solve for how much should you save, very specifically. When you're in drawdown, in retirement, most people spend more than they earn, so you're going to see how much each year you have to withdraw. So let's say we're in the drawdown. We could say, all right, we've done this cash flow analysis, and for those eMoney users out there, it's the 5-year cash flow that we all live and die by. And we could show the client in 2025, here's how much we need to withdraw to make ends meet. In 2026, here's how much you need to withdraw to make ends meet, and so on and so forth. So with specificity, what will happen, assuming those 3 goals are correct. So as long as you are generously underestimating your income, generously and realistically overestimating your expenses, and using a realistic rate of return, we use 4% to start off. Because if it works for 4, you know it's going to work for 8. That's a starting point.
Yep.
Then we know it's going to work with certainty. Goals-based. Goals-based is where you see that speedometer. You have an 85% chance of success. All right?
Yeah.
So here's a question for you guys. What else has an 85% chance of success?
Ooh, boy, 85% chance of success.
You'll notice when I tell you.
Oh boy, I love using the Socratic method. Now somebody using it with me. This is digging deep here.
Well, if we were the weatherman, and we would be like 50% of the time correct.
80%. Boy, you got me.
One methodology or one use of the 85% correct would be Russian roulette. You play Russian roulette. If you play Russian roulette, most revolvers are 6 shooters. 5 chances out of 6, you're going to be just fine. 85%. What could be better? Here's the gun. Give it a shot.
Right.
I don't want to know that I have an 85% chance of success. That's goals-based. Cash flow-based is based on these assumptions. So you're basically saying, are you cool with the assumptions? Right?
Yeah.
If you are, then you have a 100% chance of success. That's my preference.
Interesting. Here's the crazy thing is I thought everybody used cash flow base. Although I've heard people say, oh, this is a goals-based plan. I never grasped the difference. So very selfish of me. Thank you, Chuck, for explaining that.
Talking about the hate mail directly to Chad at.
Yeah, there we go. Oh no. Boy, I set myself up.
I'll just forward it to me.
No, it's fine. It's good.
Yeah.
No, this is all good. Education is where we like to focus too. And this is one of the cool things about Go RIA is you're really focused on education and people can self-select if they want to work with Sovereign. I think that's a fantastic, it's born out of that fiduciary approach is the way I think about it. But Go RIA, that takes a lot of guts to send that out. And there was a purpose for it, right? But I'd love to hear a little bit more about what is Go RIA doing other than just having a website to help firms understand how they can transition to an independent RIA.
Yeah. So it started 3 years ago. And again, it coincided when we started our recruiting process. And it's GoRIA.com. And I said, if I put out good content, we'll educate people, and some of those people will find their way to Sovereign, as I mentioned. But let me tell you something. Talking about being at the right place at the right time, we had such immediate success, like staggering success the first year. I was like, holy smoke. And it wasn't because of my production quality. Even to this day, you guys are old enough to know the Blair Witch Project. You ever see that movie? Yeah, maybe, right? So it's kind of like handheld and not really great production value, but good content. That was Go RIA then, and it still is today. Our production production quality has gotten a little better. I don't focus on that because I don't have the time. We just do the content. But the first year we had great success. So after the first year, I approached some friends of mine over at Investment News, and I said, here's what I'm doing with GoRIA.com, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Imagine what we could do if we partnered together. And that's what we did 2 years ago. So for the past 2 years, it's been now Go RIA fueled by Investment News, and talk about a wonderful symbiotic relationship where I produce the content, they distribute it, everyone gets something of value. And that's been rocket fuel for the content and the viewership of GoRIA.com, because it really is just me authentically having interviews and discussions with people. As you can see, I'm not afraid to be opinionated. It's my opinion. I think cash flow is better. I think goals-based sucks. That's my opinion. It's not being guided by advertising dollars, clearly. I can imagine that would be the case, because I'm not really a reporter. This is just a guy that happens to love this business, and I truly do, talking about it because I love talking about it. And that's been really, I think, a big part of the success is just unbiased, somewhat opinionated, but disclose when it is my opinion, thoughts on the business.
Well, Chuck, it's no different than what I do online with my content. Is I think cold calling sucks. And I think for the industry in general, I'm talking both financial services as well as the insurance industry, need to do a better job at creating thought leadership content that educates not only the end consumer, but also one another on best practices for marketing, for sales, for growing your business, for all these different areas, educating people on products and the services that you offer. So trust me, I ruffle a lot of feathers, and I'm happy to do that because I enjoy it. It gets a lot of engagement, but it also gets people thinking differently about the problem and challenges them to do things differently than they've always done it. Because I think, especially in the old school industries like financial services and insurance that have been around for hundreds of years, you get accustomed to doing the same thing over and over. And it's like, that's a definition of insanity, where it's like, hey, we need to adapt to the digital age. We need to adapt to the educational marketing space and that age, and really focus on developing high quality content that's going to help our potential customers solve problems and get specific results and outcomes. And I think that sounds like you're doing that exact thing and doing a great job.
Yeah, well, thank you on that. And I agree with what you're saying. And one thing I would add to that, though, is if you're looking to do content marketing, which I think is a great way to do it, be patient and be smart about what you should expect. I said earlier, we reach tens of thousands of advisors. We only have 17 advisors at Sovereign. And that's cool. It's almost like back in the plate liquor days, right? You guys know what a plate liquor is, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure all kinds of stuff.
I don't. That's interesting.
Okay. A plate liquor. Again, those of you in the audience, if you know, the plate liquors, right? So those are the seminars, and you had all these people come in.
Yep.
Licking your plate, having no intention of working with you. You have to have that mentality. And I tell you what, when I left the cold calling world, I really couldn't cold call for financial plans. I don't think it really works as well. You can cold call to sell some Exxon stock, but you can't really cold call for a financial plan as well. Doable for sure, but not well. So we started doing the seminar circuit, and the numbers are staggering. You're sending out 10,000 postcards to get 60 people to say they're going to come. 30 people come, 5 or 6 have an appointment, 1 or 2 become a client. And that's awesome. That is, because the ROI on that is actually great, right? But what happens is you have a lot of advisors doing that saying, oh, I can't believe I fed 30 people for nothing. It's the cost of doing business, man. That's the way it goes. So same thing. You can't say, I can't believe I'm spending all this time educating tens of thousands of people and I only have 17 advisors. That's awesome. That is good.
Yeah, really awesome.
And that's the nature of content marketing. You got to give a lot of good value away and know that, and have faith in the process that you'll get your message in front of the right people that will be a fit for you. And if you got to give a lot of good content away, so be it. That's the cost of admission.
I cannot wait to repurpose that spot from you, Chuck, because you are spot on, man. Like, I just had this conversation yesterday, and I know I don't want to digress too far, but I just had this conversation yesterday because I think this is really important, because this is what a lot of RIAs are thinking about. This is what a lot of people in the financial services industry are thinking about. It's like, how do I create a content engine that I can implement in my practice and get results? And I'm like, listen, you have to get off of thinking about ROI. You have to stop thinking about you're going to get immediate results and you're going to get all these likes and all these followers and all that stuff. That's not the purpose of creating content. The purpose of creating content is to build trust and to build your thought leadership in your space, so that when somebody's ready to make a decision or they're binging on your content, that it becomes so much easier to have the conversation with them because they know, like, and trust you. They see you as, oh, hey, I watched your video, Chuck. I listened to your podcast, and that was really valuable what you shared with me. Now I trust you more. And what I say with content is, it's like just putting another deposit in the trust building, relationship building process so that you can build that relationship, and that becomes so much stronger in the long run. So there's my little rant about.
Yeah, no,
good.
Amen to all of that. And that's a great way to put it too. Like, you keep building that trust. And I like the idea of depositing into the trust bank, right? And you have to be patient. Rob, I think you said that to start that whole segment off. And yeah, you have to be patient. And I chuckled a little bit when you said that, because I'm super patient with a lot of things, with business and everything else. But it's funny, we had the New Year's resolution thing. And I was like, all right, I really do need to finally, once and for all, lose like 15 pounds. And I do. It is what it is. I love to eat. It's all good. I don't mind a couple cocktails. And I was joking with my wife. I was like, God damn it. I have been eating healthy, not drinking for the past 3 days, and I'm still overweight. What the hell?
And I've been working out for a week. Yeah.
Right. I've been working out for a week. What am I doing wrong? You got to be consistent, right? For a long time before you start seeing results for anything, whether it's losing weight or building a book of business. It's how it is.
Yeah. I think it's a great transition, Chad. I was just thinking, I don't mean to steal your thunder here, Chad, but we were just thinking about transitioning maybe into that client-centric approach. So Chad, if you want to go take it from here, I'll cut this out, but I saw this as a great transition point to talking about Sovereign's real focus on creating that client-centric approach in how you do business.
Well, it's what you're doing, Chuck, is you're the client-centric approach from Sovereign all the way through Go RIA. And so this is selfish, but I would really love to hear a little bit more when you're in that Go RIA mode and you're talking with helping educate those advisors who are thinking about breaking away. What are you finding some of the key conversations that they're really interested in? And then maybe what's some tidbits that you would share that you have found really valuable for them, as far as if you're thinking about it. Maybe one of the things that comes up, just to give it some thought, what do you think is the most important thing if you're breaking away into the RIA world? You're an advisor, you've been doing it for 20 years. What do they need to do first?
Yeah, so there really is a whole decision tree here. So when you're looking to go independent, the first question is, do you want to build your own or buy something, or do you want to tuck in somewhere? Both of which are great options. But you have to really answer the question first. Are you someone that loves the business side of the business? Do you want to build out your IT infrastructure? I happen to love that kind of stuff. And I also happen to be very entrepreneurial minded. It's funny, going back to like a very strangely young age, I'm talking single digit, like 8 or 9. All I wanted was to have my own business. And that's a fact. Like, I didn't want to be a rock star or a pro athlete, right? I wanted my own business. And that's actually fortunate because I have neither athletic nor musical talent. So it was good that I was focusing on having my own business. So it was important for me to have my own business. If it's not, you could tuck in. And there's a lot of great tuck-in options there too. And not just Sovereign. I would say there's literally like 200 solid RIAs to choose from. And that's the good news. Like, if you don't want to build something, talk to 10, 15 different RIAs. They'd be eager to speak with you. And I bet you will be able to find one that's about 95% exactly how you would have built it if you wanted to build your own. So first question, Chad, or answer is to look, do you want to build your own or tuck in? And determine, like, what do you want to do for your business, right? Do you want to continue a lifestyle business? Do you want to build and scale? Do you want to bring on advisors? What flavor of RIA do you want, right? So starting off with the most basic one, which is the lifestyle practice. And those are great, right? Where else, after you build your book of business, you might as well go to the RIA space, makes it more sellable. There's so many different ways we can go off on this. But now, once you're really established and you're not looking to scale up, and not everyone has to scale up, right? You can be making $1 million a year, working pretty easily. And 20 years into your business, and I'll speak for myself, when I'm meeting with clients, 90% of the chit chat is, how are the kids? What's going on? And you're just catching up with friends. And they're paying us for this. What a great deal. Right. And you're providing service for them and you're providing value. why would you not want to do that for the rest of your life? But make sure you have that ability to have that continue, but then also monetize that at the end. No one loves to work more than me, but at some point I will likely die.
Right.
At some point, something's going to make me stop working, right? So you got to plan for that. And that asset, which is your book of business, don't let that go to waste, right? Make sure you have some way to monetize that as your final hurrah. And without question, you could do that much better at a much higher multiple in the RIA space. So even I would say to those folks that, I'm not looking to build, cool, that's all right. Go RIA, get that done, and now you're set for the rest of your life. And the good news is your kids could either take it over if you set up the processes properly, makes it real easy to take over an RIA, or you could sell it for top dollar once you're really done working it. So I think that's the way to look at it. Build your own or tuck are the two main ways. Answer that for yourself honestly first. Then if you want to build your own, there's a whole lot of stuff you got to do, which is do your research, due diligence. And if you want to tuck in, there's a whole lot of research, right? Talk to a bunch of different firms and see where you want to go. And then once you're there, then you're done. It's literally the last transition you ever have to make, right? And as independent as you think you are at the IBDs, and I was at one for 20 years, you're laughing already. You're not really independent, right? Try to do something that you really want to do in marketing and they say no. If they have the final word, how independent are you? And you're saying, but this is reasonable. This is fine. Nope. Well, how independent are you? Maybe not that independent after all. More independent than at one of the wirehouses, perhaps, but true independence lives in the RI space. And you know what? Even if you're not going to grow, even if you're not going to grow, there's some reasons for it. So
Chuck, you know my joke about that, right?
What's
so
that?
We had Thane Gould, who's a very close friend of mine. He works for, why did I just draw a blank? Vigilant. He works for Vigilant. So he's like
who is he?
Chuck or Thane Gould. He's like in their marketing, on their marketing team.
I just spoke with Thane.
You did? Thane's awesome. He's a very close friend. He's a very close personal friend of mine.
Guy.
He's great.
Yeah, we're actually launching a 40 Act fund.
That's fantastic. So
and Vigilant is our CCM.
That's fantastic. This is such a small world in this industry. Well, Chad and I had Thane on our podcast and we talked about the compliance piece of marketing. And I always joke about it. It's like the sales prevention department. And I know it's a joke, but it's like, it's one of those things that can be a constraint and you think you're independent, but it's like you always have somebody who's overseeing everything you're doing, every single email, every single text message, every single video that you want to create. Somebody's always going to be scrutinizing that or putting it through that lens of compliance. And so that was my big joke with him. It's like, that's like the sales prevention department.
Oh, it is. Well, I was just at the Investment Advisor Association's compliance conference last week in DC. And it was as exciting as you would imagine, but it was. And we talked a lot about compliance. And we were making jokes on like, oh, compliance is not the sexy, but it could be. And here's where compliance gets real sexy. In the RI space, finally being able to do what you want to do, that's pretty darn sexy. And that's what we focused on in our coverage of it last week. But one thing I want to just build upon what you were saying there, Rob, the difference between broker-dealer compliance and RI compliance. Here's how I would position it, and I would welcome any feedback if anyone thinks this is really wrong. If you're at a broker-dealer, especially one of the larger ones, and most of them are pretty large, your compliance analyst is some young-ish person on a salary that maybe is not all that high. And here's the deal. If they say yes to what you want to do, or if they say no to what you want to do, they get paid the same amount, right? So might as well say no and cover your butt than say yes, because there's no real incentive. Now, in the RIA space, especially if it's your own RIA, right, or you're part of a small team, there's a lot of incentive to say yes, because we all want this firm to grow. Now, the only thing we want to do more than see the firm grow is to not see the firm shut down. So there's still a lot of focus on compliance, but it's now reasonable. It's not an automatic rubber stamp. Nope. It's let's see if we can make that work and stay compliant. That's a big difference right there. And
So
if that's
this
not
is
sexy, I don't know what is.
this is quite fascinating because I agree with you. I have a little bit different perspective on it. So same world, just looking at it from a different angle. The way I think of it is in the FINRA space, everything is so rules based, and there's a lot of different reasons for that. They've got rules to the nth degree. I was talking with somebody earlier this week. They've got a rule for when I go to the bathroom, is what he said, which I was okay. And that's how it's run. And then you get this new individual who's been doing it for 3 years, and all they say is no, it drives you wacko. But then in the SEC space, they have a very big stick, but they don't use it very often. And the assumption is that you're doing the right thing for your client. But if we think you're not, we're going to come in and make your life tough. So that you're exactly right. The beauty of it is every single advisor I've ever asked, when I said, when you've gone RIA, you've gone completely independent, or you've tucked in or whatever, now you're under the RIA umbrella. They're like, I should have done this way earlier. Never, ever have there been any regrets. And it's been interesting over the last 5 years to see how many, we see all kinds of different reasons to get there, but they're all so glad that they did. So thank you for being out there, helping educate those registered reps and IARs that are under someone else and understand what the possibilities are. I really appreciate it. Of course, the organization I run can sometimes benefit from it, but regardless, I think it's fantastic for the industry. So thank you for that. And then we're going to pivot, because the major constraint we have is time. And I would love to hear from you, Chuck. When you get to the day where you're looking back, you're going to end, it sounds like you're going to work right up until that final day when you can't. But if you get a few days in there where you're sitting on the porch and you're looking back over your life, you say, wow, this has been pretty great. What are you going to be known for?
What am I going to be looking for?
No, what are you going to be known for? People are going to say, oh, no, this is who Chuck is, right? And it may be in the advisory space. It may not. It's really helps us. It's just a fascinating personal question that we love to ask. Question.
I'll tell you exactly what I hope will be the case. And first of all, thank you for those kind words before, and right back at you. You're doing some great stuff with this podcast and delivering a lot of information that's needed in this industry. But if I can have myself known for one thing, and I really do mean this, is that I never, ever, not only haven't lied to anyone, but I've never misled anyone or bullshitted anyone. And I really hope that's the case. My kids, I hope, will believe that is the case. I'm serious.
Yeah.
My advisors, the team at Sovereign, and it's just, I think, the way to be. But also, from a business perspective, one of my biggest currencies that I use as I try to leverage and build my business is that over 30 years in this industry, there's not one person who will ever say that Chuck BS'd me, misled me, misguided me. There's not one person in this industry that will ever say that. And I'm really proud of that. And that's the right thing to do. But the ancillary benefit is that's really good for building a business. Because when I tell someone, here's what we're doing, it's what we're doing. If this is what I say I'm going to do, that's what I'm going to do. So it's not only just the right way to go, but it's great for building business, great for building relationships with friends and family. And that is what I hope to be known for, if I'm lucky enough that people will see it that way.
That's awesome.
That's fantastic. Yeah.
So listen, Chuck, as we're landing this plane here, we want to know, how can people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about Sovereign and they want to get in touch with you personally? What's the best way for people to reach you?
Sure. Probably the easiest way would be through LinkedIn. One of the benefits of having a fairly unusual last name, Failla, Failla, is I'm easy to find. And I am by far the most famous Chuck Failla on LinkedIn, which is not that big of a statement because I think there's 2 Chuck Faillas on LinkedIn, but I come right. Or you could go to just Google me, Chuck Failla, same thing. I'm all over the first couple of pages of Google, again, for no other reason other than I think there's another Chuck Failla down in Florida somewhere that's a mortgage broker. So I'm slightly more famous than him, but I think it's just the 2 of us on Google. But if you just Google Chuck Failla, I come right up. Or of course, you could just reach out to me directly at Sovereign. That's fine too, whatever people prefer. But LinkedIn, I'm very active on that. And DM me, and I'm always quick to DM back.
And Chuck has an amazing podcast. What's the name of your podcast, Chuck?
Yes.
Oh, that's even easier. GoRIA.com. GORIA.com. Could not be any simpler.
There we go. Listen, Chuck, you were an amazing guest. I'm so grateful and honored to have you on with myself and Chad. We just knocked it out of the ballpark with you, Chuck. I don't know how we got so lucky to have you, but we're honored. We're truly humbled and love your story. I want to have you back on again at some point to continue our conversation. Also to check in with you to see how you're doing and how you're growing and really impacting people's lives in a positive way. We love that. And guys, listen, thank you so much for joining us on the Advisor's Edge podcast. We'll see you again on the next episode, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you both very much. It's been my pleasure. I appreciate being on.
Thanks.
Thank you.